I was writing about Dalton Trumbo and his refusal to testify when brought before the House Un-American Activities Committee in the late 1940s. As a result of that, he was sent to jail and was put on the Hollywood blacklist. This was a time when the word communist was something to conjure with. It cast a spell, the equivalent of Al-Qaeda or ISIS today. Today, if you are expected of having any contact or anything to do with ISIS, you will be arrested and charged as a suspect in a possible terrorist activity. In the late 1940s and 50s, the same was true for communism. If I have it correctly, and I think I do, attorneys who defended the so-called conspirators were also charged and sent to jail. Loyalty, patriotism was taken very, very seriously into the realm of thoughts. Trumbo believed that the First Amendment, the freedom of speech, should provide absolute protection for all speech, except that which instigates a clear and present danger to the state or any of its citizens. The Bill of Rights, he argued, is there not to protect the powerful and the popular, but the most hated man in the most detested minority. But with HUAC and its ability to compel confession under threat of incarceration, the freedom of speech was rendered essentially meaningless, protecting only unimportant speech ineffectively communicated. Trumbo called his times an excess of hysteria. Just the mention of communism was enough to send people into a rage or to tremble with fear. Hysteria is a deep, broad, powerful force. It is an inability to control emotions, which results in a tremendous physical outburst. Hysteria is the extreme opposite of reason. But reasonable people can disagree so vehemently that they become unreasonable. If they become hysterical, then there is trouble, big trouble, on all sides. War is a kind of hysteria. Hysteria is not a term favored by modern-day psychologists. Freud used it in his work. It has its origin etymologically in the uterus of a woman. Originally, only women could become and behave hysterically. If one did, it was because her uterus had gotten somehow detached and was floating about inside her, causing her extreme erratic behavior, driving her mad. Today, psychologists prefer to use terms like somatization disorder, conversion disorder, or dissociative disorders. When I think of hysteria, I think of young girls shrieking and screaming at Frank Sinatra, Elvis, the Beatles. Mass hysteria is something else again. It's when a large number of people get irrationally and most likely in an ugly, act irrationally and most likely in an ugly, violent manner. This is what we call mob behavior. I looked up examples in history of mass hysteria on the internet. I was surprised to find in a rather long list of events that so many of them began in nunneries or schools for young girls. We are very familiar with one, the Salem witch trials. Arthur Miller used that for his play The Crucible, which he hoped would shed light on the Inquisition happening in his own time, the one led by Joe McCarthy and HUAC. At a downtown market where we shop, a sign is posted commemorating what is called the anti-German hysteria during World War I. At that time, German teachers lost their jobs, German residents were evicted, and streets with German names were renamed. Once this kind of thing gains traction, it can be very hard to overcome or to stop. There can be no discussion about it. Whoever might argue or object immediately becomes a target. So people turn away, keep their distance, want no part of that fight. Hysterias can be silly. There was a silly one just this year. The internet is a great promoter of such silliness. It has, as they say, many platforms for silliness. There was a report or a report of someone in a clown costume dragging a young woman off into the woods. Soon there were bands of clowns and gangs of clowns threatening peaceful citizens from coast to coast, so quite logically, many towns and cities banned the use of clown makeup and clown costumes, including on and around Halloween. was nothing silly about the hysteria that broke out and swallowed up for a time Dalton Trumbo and others in the Hollywood 10. And there were others who were swept aside, their lives smashed all across the country. And the crazy part of that was that these hysterics did not appear to be hysterical at all. They appeared not as a witch or a goblin or a clown, but as an authority figure trying to protect the nation. With ISIS and terror bubbling all about us now, it's only a matter of time until hysteria, or what we might call it, or whatever we might call it, erupts again.